It's time!
I'm Keith, joined as always by Tom. Tom, how are you tonight, bro?
I'm doing great, Keith. Only a few minor technical difficulties that I'm sure nobody knew about until I mentioned it right now. Feeling good, first time going live. Let us know down below when you're watching. There's going to be a couple people piling in, I know, as the time goes on here, but as you're coming in, let us know down below if you have any thoughts. I'll be monitoring the chat as we go through. It's our first time going live, so be easy on us, folks. Keith, how you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. Just in case you missed it with the technical difficulties, this is Pickin Fights. So what's kicking, everybody? Make sure that you guys are commenting, liking, subscribing if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're watching on Twitter right now, give us a retweet, give us a follow. And I'll also follow @_PickinWinners on Twitter, on Instagram. And I'll check out pickinwinners.org for the rest of our content that's on that little ticker down below. So make sure you're following us on everything, checking out all the content. And thanks for joining us. So we're here to talk about UFC Fight Night Columbus. But before we do that, there is a little bit of hot news out there in the UFC world, right? Some hot off the press coming in from last night. Supposedly, allegedly, now there's video coming out, I guess, of Colby Covington and George Masvidal getting into a little bit of a scrap outside of Poppy Steakhouse in Miami. Colby was there with the Nelk boys and Bob Menery. I guess he was having dinner post-interview, and George rolled up, and he wanted revenge for his loss against Colby and all the things that Colby said to him and about him at the press conference. So what do you think about that, Tom? What's your take on this little beef that we had?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And apparently when you read into what Colby said or Colby posted, what the Nelk boys had posted, what the surroundings were and everything that basically wasn't ESPN. Anybody who was tweeting about it, anything that you read in the police reports, it all kind of pointed to a situation that was completely different than what ESPN had written about. The bottom line is that Colby was doing an interview, or I guess it wasn't an interview. They were just having dinner with the Nelk boys. Bob Menery was posting about it. And apparently George Masvidal showed up and he was causing a commotion outside. He was apparently wearing a mask and a hoodie. And this was, at Poppy's, I don't know the name of the steakhouse, but it was a pretty prominent place in the Miami Strip. So you have George Masvidal on a Monday night cruising around the Miami Strip, finds out where Colby Covington is because he follows the Nelk boys. Right? This is a guy who's 37 years old. He's a fighter. And the whole gimmick here, one of the whole things, the crux of the argument that Colby had against George is that he was a bad father. And everyone's talking about how, Colby Covington is talking about his kids, George's kid, his wife. But whenever he talked about Maritza, he talked very positive about Maritza, that she was the one putting the roof over both of their heads, taking care of them. So she talked positive about her, and he didn't have anything bad to say about the kids other than that George was neglecting them and not being a good father. So on a Monday night, George is now out on the main Miami Strip looking to get revenge for a fight that he lost fair and square, shows up wearing a mask and hoodie, right? Lands a couple of cheap shots on Colby Covington, and then is proud that Colby Covington chipped a tooth. Well, you landed a cheap shot on him, number one. And number two, his whole argument is that you're a bad dad, and on a Monday night, a weeknight, you're out on Miami Boulevard. It doesn't look good if you're Colby, if you're George Masvidal. And the fact that Colby is pressing charges, I think, is just kind of throwing salt in the wound there. Yeah,
no, I think it's absolutely hilarious, and I like ESPN talking about an unnamed victim is pressing charges after George Masvidal is identified. It's just so funny the whole way. Like, we all know it's Colby. Sure, put out the legal documents like that, but we all know that it was Colby that was assaulted. But, I just think George had 25 minutes to do what he wanted to do, and instead he wanted to make it a little bit of a street fight. It's what he's more used to. It's what he came up on, street fights, street beefs. But, you had your 25 minutes to do it, and instead you got embarrassed, essentially, made to look silly like a clown on an international pay-per-view. And I see a lot of people out there defending George. Well, he said this and that about his kids. Like you mentioned, it wasn't even about his kids. It was about you, George. And, if you had something you wanted to settle, do it that way. The only thing I look forward to now is seeing George lose all of that money that he won from the paper, not won, but he earned in the pay-per-view, losing that now to a lawsuit and lawyer fees. So I do look forward to hearing that. I heard a rumor that the sentence going forward is going to be 44 to 50 years or 50 to 44 years, something along. I don't know, but it's going to be crazy to see how this all shakes out. So we'll talk about what we're here to talk about now, though. We have the UFC Fight Night Columbus card, headlined by Chris Daukaus and Curtis Blaydes. And we're going to start, as always, like we do with our prelim locks. I do just want to mention first, though, this is a card that's catching a lot of flack from a lot of people online. A lot of people are out there like, yo, this is trash. Well, I saw you tweet it the other day. It's sandwiched between two really good cards. We had the UFC UK card last week, and we've got a massive pay-per-view coming up this week that's going to be phenomenal the following week. So this week, they had to give us something a little bit more mid, but it's still great. It makes you look back on the days when the UFC was very sporadic, and now we've got great fight nights coming every week. So we'll jump in with our prelim locks, and I'm having a little bit of a tougher time. Some of these prelims are a little bit harder to pick this week, but I'm rolling with Neil Magny over Max Griffin. I think that this is also just a really good fight to watch too. And it looks like the people on Tapology do agree with me as well. Neil Magny coming in at 92% of the votes. But I like that Neil Magny is very intelligent in the octagon. He always seems to find a way to at least attempt to pull out a win. He likes to grapple against the cage if that's what the situation calls for. And he's also really good at using his reach advantage and being able to maintain range against his opponent. And in this fight, he's actually got a pretty significant reach advantage, at about 4 inches. So, I like Neil Magny here. He's got a good history of opponents, guys like Li Jingliang, a couple other good ones down there in his past. And, I like him here. I like Neil Magny's activity. I really just like everything about him here. Coming in at, a slight favorite, but I like to lay a little bit out on Neil Magny, sprinkle a little bit. So what do you think about this one, Tom?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, you look at Max Griffin's last opponent was Carlos Condit about 8 months ago. Unanimous decision win, but I don't know what that really says about the state of where you're at your career. Beating a guy like Carlos Condit. Moving forward, I think Neil Magny just has faced a higher caliber of opponent. I think he is better in all areas of the fight than Max Griffin is. And I think there are some other questions with Max Griffin and his opponent's history. So I see Neil Magny being the more technical fighter. Whenever in a potential doubt, could put it up against the cage, be technical. I think he's just the overall better fighter, the smarter fighter. I think he's had better competition in his past, and I think he's going to take this one probably by a decision.
I love when you and I agree. So I don't have any other prelim locks. Do you have anything else for us in that realm?
Yeah, no. There was one other fight that I just wanted to highlight. Manon Fiorot against Jennifer Maia. I think that I'm just looking for it here so I can bring it up. Jennifer Maia versus Manon Fiorot. I think Maia she has a lot more fight miles on her. These girls are generally about the same age, but when you consider the fact that Maia has had a lot more grueling fights up to this point in her career, and Manon Fiorot has looked good in the few fights that she's had thus far. I think she's going to be able to avoid the takedown. She's been good at it as of recent. So I think Manon Fiorot is going to be able to defend everything that Jennifer Maia has coming at her. I think she's going to be able to piece her up on the feet. I think this one, if she's able to defend the takedowns, I think she's actually, Manon Fiorot is better, good enough on the feet that she may be able to finish the fight in the later rounds. But yeah, I would put a good amount of money on Manon Fiorot. I don't know what the odds are for it right now, but if we can get those odds, I would take Manon Fiorot anything at or better -200.
Okay, well, you're going to be surprised to find out that she's a -400 favorite in this fight.
All right, well, there you go. Although I'd be interested to find out what her knockout to finish odds are.
Well, I'm sure you'll be talking about that more as the fight approaches, so make sure that you're following Tom at Pickin Fights Tom on Twitter. So we're going to start with the main card here. Opening fight for the main card. I really, really love it. And I absolutely love one of the guys in this fight. And that is Viacheslav Borshchev, a.k.a. Slava Claus. He looked absolutely incredible in his debut fight in the UFC against Dakota Bush. He won with an absolutely brutal punch right to the liver. He's a little bit of a newer guy to MMA. You know, he was a kickboxing champion beforehand, but you know, he was incredible. He looked great against Dakota Bush. And he didn't really get to flex all of his kickboxing muscles either, because there was that real threat of the takedown from Dakota Bush. Dakota Bush did bring him to the ground at one point, and Viacheslav Borshchev got up, you know, really quickly. It was really impressive to see. He managed to get back up fast, you know, and he ended that fight with that incredible liver shot. So ultimately, I think for this one, Marc Diakiese isn't nearly as big of a grappling threat for Borshchev as Dakota Bush was. Anybody that's been watching the sport for a while knows. And Diakiese has a little bit more mileage on him. So I really like Viacheslav Borshchev to win this one by another first-round KO. The Slava Claus keep going. He's a guy out of Uriah Faber's gym. Can't remember the name off the top of my head, but you know, he's the next guy up out of there. So
that would be Team Alpha Male, Keith.
Yes, Team Alpha Male, correct. Really looking forward to seeing Uriah Faber in Viacheslav Borshchev's corner this week. It's really something fun to see all those international fighters coming out of Team Alpha Male. But yeah, really looking forward to Viacheslav Borshchev, Slava Claus, first round knockout. What do you think for that one, Tom?
Yeah, I'm really interested for these guys. I mean, he's got a little bit of a shorter reach here, but 6-1. The Russian fighter fighting out of Sacramento, California, makes sense that it's going to be Uriah Faber. Yeah, I would tend to go with you. Whenever you and the people of Tapology align, it's almost always a safe bet. That's the notion here, so I'm going to tell you on that one.
All right, sweet. Yeah, love the Borshchev pick. That is actually my favorite pick of this whole card. I feel super confident about him. So we'll move it on up to the next one. We've got Aleksei Oleinik versus Illir Latifi. And, you know, anybody that's been watching, you know, it's a very similar theme. There's a lot of long-term guys on this card. Aleksei Oleinik, he's old, and he's in the twilight of his career right now. He's 44, and he's taken a lot of damage, but specifically in his last couple of fights, you know, he's been with a murderer's row in this heavyweight division. You know, he's fought Sergey Spivak, and he fought Chris Daukaus, who's headlining this card. So, you know, he's taken some heavy shots, a lot of damage, but he is 59-16 professionally, unfortunately on a 3-fight skid, but we still have to celebrate the guy. You know, he's doing it at 44. He's still out there. He's a professional athlete. It is very impressive, but I'm taking Illir Latifi here. You know, he is also 2-3 over his last 5. But he's slightly younger at 38, and he's just a little bit faster. He's got that little bit of an edge on him. He's got a little bit more finishing power. You know, I think that ultimately the way that this one's going to go is they probably gas out in round 2, both of them, because Aleksei Oleinik and Illir Latifi are not really known for being, you know, guys with large gas tanks that can go for 5 rounds, especially this late. But I think they'll start to gas midway through the second round. This one will end by decision, and you know, I think it could be a closer decision. You know, maybe a 30-27 fight, but I think it ultimately comes down to an Illir Latifi win by decision here. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This is probably not that interesting of a show when we agree all the time, but the facts are the facts. That Aleksei Oleinik, he's on a 3-fight losing skid here, and you know, at 44 years old, it's hard to recover from a 3-fight losing streak at any point in your career, let alone at 44 years old. And he's getting knocked out, he's getting finished. It's not like he's having long, grueling fights that, you know, he's not taking a lot of damage. It's a wrestling match, and he's just losing on points or something like that. I mean, the guy's taking damage. He's getting knocked out. He's coming back and still fighting at an incredible pace for anyone, let alone a guy who's 44 years old. But the facts of the matter, he's old. He's on a losing streak. His chin is in danger, especially as he gets tired and the fight gets, you know, further on. Illir Latifi, not the youngest spring chicken, but at the end of the day, he's a little bit younger, like you said, a little faster. He's going to weigh a little bit more in this fight, and he's had a lot of good, you know, takedown defense and grappling exhibitions with guys with the likes of Tanner Boser. He took Tanner Boser down. He looked good. He controlled him for most of the fight. It wasn't all that impressive or interesting, but the fact that he was able to control and have that level of grappling, I think really showed a lot about Illir Latifi. At this point in career, you're looking at two veterans of the game. I see Illir Latifi, grinding a decision, like you said, Keith.
Yeah, I mean, hey, when it comes down to a decision like that, it could end up working out in Oleinik's favor, but I'm definitely rolling with Latifi here. And like you mentioned, he did have that win over Tanner Boser, which was pretty nice. So next up, we've got – so I said this before, Viacheslav Borshchev was my favorite pick. He's actually my second favorite fighter on this card. This one's a little bit more of an unpopular pick, and it's one that I'm not as confident in, but it's a guy that I really enjoy watching. And I'm going with Kai Kara-France here. A lot of people at home are going to be like, dude, what are you talking about right now? But I like Kai Kara, and maybe it's a little bit of a personal bias in this one. But I think that Askarov he's great, but he can be beat. I think that there's a lot of flyweights that he's faced in the past that have made him look a lot better than he is. He's had a lot of close decisions with guys like Brandon Moreno, that if one thing went slightly differently, and you could say this about a lot of different fights, but that would be Brandon Moreno's fight. Or, there's a lot of moments when Askarov looked beatable. And I don't think in this one he has the strength on the ground to ground and pound out a guy like Kai Kara-France, where ultimately that's the only way that you're going to beat KKF on the ground, is at the ref stopping it. So, I think, and KKF, he doesn't really get stuck in vulnerable positions on the ground. He's got great defense on the ground. He's got incredible takedown defense. I just can't wait until Kai Kara-France really catches the public eye. He started to get a little bit more hype with that Cody Garbrandt knockout. But he's one of the top contenders in this flyweight division. He trains at City Kickboxing with some of the greats in the game right now, like Izzy, Volk, all those great New Zealanders and Australians over there. So he's naturally well-rounded. And like I said, the great takedown defense, finds a way to get back up to his feet safely a lot of the times without being GMP'd out or submitted. And I'm taking KKF because I think ultimately what's going to happen is Askarov isn't going to be able to land as many takedowns as he would like, or be able to finish Kai Kara on the ground as he would like. And once his game plan falls apart, it's Kai Kara-France's time to take over. So I like him to either win by a knockout, a late knockout after Askarov's game plan falls apart, or potentially a unanimous decision, just getting back up and landing more damage on the feet. Not to talk about Kai Kara-France too much, but, he's like one of the drippiest guys in the UFC right now. He's just super fresh whenever he's walking into a fight or walking into whatever arena they're at. I can't wait for him to catch more of the public eye. He was fighting Cody Garbrandt at 269, and Cody Garbrandt was way more focused on Sean O'Malley, that Kai Kara-France didn't really get as much shine on the microphone. But this is going to be one of the future stars of that flyweight division, if not of the UFC. It's that City Kickboxing takeover right now. I'm really riding with Kai Kara-France here. The people of Tapology do disagree with me, but they are wrong sometimes. So I'm going with the underdog here in Kai Kara-France. What do you think about that one, Tom?
Yeah, I just can't pick against Kai Kara-France. He's a good guy. He's fun to root for. He has a fun team around him. His nickname is Fong Don't Blink, and that's exactly the type of attitude he, exuded against Cody Garbrandt. And like you said, Cody Garbrandt was focused on somebody else. And Kai Kara-France took advantage of that. And he is extremely well-rounded. Of all of the guys at City Kickboxing, a lot of them will tell you that Kai Kara-France might have the highest ceiling out of all of them. Now, the question here is that Kai Kara-France is coming in on, I guess, it's relative short notice, fighting, 2 months ago and already turning around. So it'll be about 2 months and a week and a half, I guess, for him. So that is pretty short notice. You're talking about 9 weeks. And he's probably – I don't know exactly when he took the fight, but I can't imagine it was too far after his last fight. We've known about this for a little bit, but at the end of the day, I'm I'm kind of with you, man. Call me crazy. I'm with Kai Kara-France. I'm riding that train. Typically, we've seen a lot of guys who've had a lot of hype turn around quick and actually lose that fight, and it's been detrimental to them. But at the end of the day, I like the attitude that, you're going to come in here, you're going to fight anybody, you're going to fight anyone, you're going to take the opportunities that are given to you or that you can take. I like Kai Kara-France's game. I think he's well-rounded. He showed that he has, a good ground game. And Askarov, we've learned, he's got the better grappling out of the two guys for sure. That's not what's in debate here. But Askarov can, against top level competition, he's shown to be beatable and that he can at least be stopped. And that I'm pointing to that Brandon Moreno. I think Brandon Moreno actually won that fight, or he probably should have lost that fight. But I think Kai Kara-France can KO people. I think he's going to have good enough grappling defense to dictate where the fight takes place. And if things get too risky on the ground, I think he's going to be able to be competent enough to work it to the fence, eventually stalemate, get out, spin off the fence and land a shot on the outside or coming out of a grappling or coming out of a clinch exchange. I like Kai Kara-France here. I'm following you.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, there is really some money to be made on this fight too, because the odds for this one, Kai Kara-France is coming in at plus 240. And it seems reasonable knowing who Askarov is and, all the things that you mentioned about the quick turnaround. But at plus 240, and I mean, I'm sure you agree, and the people of Tapology agree, that if Kai Kara-France does win, it's most likely by knockout. I can't wait to see what that Kai Kara-France by knockout line looks like. I'm thinking it's probably going to be like plus 3 something. So I really look forward to that. I really look forward to wagering a little bit there. Super huge Kai Kara-France fan. I mean, I could probably spend an hour just talking about how much I love that little 5'4" New Zealander. But we'll keep going on up the card to Matt Brown versus.
One quick thing about Askarov is you go back and you look at his competition. He fought Brandon Moreno 2.5 years ago. And that was to a split decision. And you fight Tim Elliott, right? He'll fight anyone. That was a unanimous decision. That's 2 years ago. A year and 7 months ago, he fought Alexandre Pantoja, which is a good win and still looks pretty good. And then a year ago, he fought Joseph Benavidez, who's since retired. And that wasn't the best Joseph Benavidez we've seen. Taking all this time off. I know he's 29, but I just like Kai Kara-France's activity, and he's not taking a lot of big shots. I know he didn't take a lot of damage against Cody Garbrandt, so hopefully the 2 months isn't that bad for him. I like Kai Kara at this point, man.
Yeah, me too. I'm riding with him huge here. I'm a huge fan of Kai Kara-France as a fighter and as a handicapper. So, yeah, love the Kai Kara-France pick here. Hopefully he makes us look really, really intelligent come next Saturday. So, next up, we've got Matt Brown versus Bryan Barberena. And, I actually like Matt Brown in this fight. He's a veteran of the game. There's no other way to put it. He's been in the UFC for quite some time now. He is a little bit older. He is 41. So you can throw all that stuff that I said, Aleksei, Oleinik, out the window about being older, because it just does not apply to Matt Brown in this case. Matt Brown gives me very much Andrei Arlovsky vibes, where, yeah, he's 41, but he still fights and acts like he's in his 30s. And, it goes back to mindset and a lot of the intangibles when it comes to Matt Brown, because that is what has to take over when you get to a certain age. And he was on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani, just talking about how he wants to show everybody that he's not like this old man that everybody thinks he is. And I actually do believe him when he speaks about that, especially when it's in a matchup that's as ideal for him as a guy like Bryan Barberena. I think that there's a lot of people in Matt Brown's past that if you put Bryan Barberena up against them, it would maybe be a decision fight, whereas Matt Brown finished these kinds of guys, like Diego Lima, for example. So, and I'm rolling with Matt Brown. More importantly than anything, he's got a great stand-up game for a guy that's over 40 years old, and he's got legitimate power in his hands. So I'm rooting for the old guy here. I'm going with Matt Brown, and I'm taking the minus 110. It's basically even across the board, but I like Matt Brown to get it done, and I like him to get it done by knockout. What do you think?
Yeah, no, we must have done all the same research, man. I like Matt Brown, the immortal here. Bryan Barberena can be a little bit wild, and at 32 years old, he has decent experience, but at 16-8 record, I mean, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to talk about Matt Brown at 23-18 as much better. I think both guys have been very streaky in their careers, but I think Matt Brown, like you said, just has the ability to get a win when he needs it. That was showcased by the Diego Lima fight. I think Matt Brown is kind of on his way out, though, and unfortunately, I think this is going to be an upset. I'm going to go with Bryan Barberena here. For whatever reason, mid-sentence, I just got a flash of something else happening, and I'm remembering back to that Diego Lima fight, and I know Diego Lima I think he was a heavy favorite in that one. And Matt Brown came out and kind of shocked the world and was riding high. I'm afraid that is actually going to be a fluke. And now I'm actually switching to the other side. I think maybe I'm going to go with Bryan Barberena here for precisely that reason. I think, as you get older, that eventually starts to show itself. And, we look back at Matt Brown, decision, KO, TKO. So his chin has obviously started to crack. He's been in some wars. He has KOs on his record. These Diego Sanchez's, these couple few I remember were absolute wars. And you look, he takes a lot of time off, between fights. This is, 8 months, a year and a month, a year and 10 months. So he's taking a lot of time off. It makes me think that he may be concerned about his chin and his chin's longevity. So Bryan Barberena, I think he can come in, maybe swing wild and actually catch Matt Brown. At some point, I know you have Tom Brady coming back. You have a lot of these guys who are doing it later on in life. I'm afraid that Matt Brown is not going to take this one. So I would go with Bryan Barberena here, and I would go by finish.
Well, we had to disagree at one point, right? Like, I'd imagine maybe on the next two we'll align again with our picks, but we definitely had to disagree at some point on this episode. I'm still going with Matt Brown here. I don't think it's so much of an upset because they're both minus 110 that even Vegas is saying Matt Brown really has a great chance of doing it. And I think that the biggest thing that the Vegas odds makers are probably looking at is just that age difference. That's probably it here because it's definitely not skill. Matt Brown is the more skilled fighter, but when you get over 40, it's like, okay, what is he going to give us this time around? But I still am rolling with Matt Brown here. I feel really good about him. I like the old guy here. And, maybe it's a little bit of a bias, but I am a fan of Matt Brown. And I like everything about the guy. He's not in it for the money. He's really in it to put on a show and get some wins before he leaves. He has no plans of leaving anytime soon. So I do see him getting a victory here and carrying on a little bit of a streak and then potentially retiring some point down the road. So next up, we've got the co-main event, which is Joanne Calderwood-Wood versus Aleksei Grasso. And I'm actually rolling with Aleksei Grasso in this one because Joanne Calderwood-Wood, for anybody that doesn't know, I'll kind of ruin the joke a little bit, but her name was Joanne Calderwood, and then she got married to someone named Wood. So now she's just Joanne Wood. She dropped the Calder, but I like calling her Joanne Calderwood-Wood. So that's what I will be referring to her as going forward. Anyways, Joanne Calderwood-Wood, she's on a little bit of a skid, losing 3 of her last 5. She's definitely in a race against time, though, more than anything, because she is 36 years old. And, we have these guys on this card that we're talking about that are fighting into their 40s. You don't really see women doing that so often. And Joanne Calderwood-Wood was a woman who, her last real push was going to be against Lauren Murphy. And then the winner of that one was supposed to go up and fight Valentina Shevchenko, which did happen. Lauren Murphy got absolutely demolished. It was pretty funny. You see comedians like Andrew Schultz who like to get in on MMA every now and then talking about Lauren Murphy looked like a diner waitress getting beat up by Valentina Shevchenko. I digress. Anyways, that was her real last push. And now we've got, a married Joanne Calderwood-Wood. I don't know if she has any kids, but she's getting into that stage of her life where it's maybe time to move away from MMA. I don't think that we're going to see an as motivated Joanne Calderwood-Wood anymore. And, you compare that to Aleksei Grasso, who is almost 10 years her junior at 28. And you could say that maybe, Joanne Calderwood-Wood has fought the more impressive opponents. She absolutely has over time. But Alexa Grasso's wins and fights in general over her past few have just been so much more impressive and dominant than Joanne Calderwood-Wood's, because Alexa Grasso, when she wins, they're in dominant decisions. When she loses, they're in close decisions where, maybe it's up to debate a little bit, but she's not being finished. And then you see Joanne Calderwood-Wood, and in her past 5, she gave up her back to Talia Santos and got finished by a rear naked choke. She lost by an armbar. So, I really see Alexa Grasso winning probably by decision here, but a very dominant decision over an unmotivated old Joanne Calderwood-Wood. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, it boils down to the fact that, and you highlighted it, that she had a really close fight with Lauren Murphy, who, at this point is not much of a competition. And I think Alexa Grasso is actually, she's young, she's hungry, she's entering the prime of her career. She can actually do something. Joanne Wood Calderwood. I'm not going to call her the same thing as you, man. I just think she's entering the elder stages of her career. I don't think she has better fields ahead of her. I think Alexa Grasso is more well-rounded. I think she's more determined and hungry at this point. I think she is a much more technical fighter. She's a better boxer. She has much better footwork, so she's much better on the feet. I think Joanne Calderwood's only hope is to try and hold her against the cage, which I think Alexa Grasso is going to be, big enough to be able to get out of that situation. And more technical to maybe not find herself in that situation. So for all those reasons, yeah, I like Alexa Grasso. And just looking down at Tapology, oh, wow, what do you know? Alexa Grasso is a big, big favorite here. 89% by decision. 90% of the people going with Alexa Grasso. I would take that by decision. It's probably not great odds, but you throw it in a parlay and hopefully it does something for you.
Yeah, no surprise there whatsoever. I'd say like 90% of the time we do align with Tapology, and that's because the people on Tapology, you have about 1,000 people voting just to give people that are watching live for the first time that don't know a little bit of back, history on what Tapology is. That is like the site that people go and vote on who they think is going to win about. And most of the time we do align with those people, but we give you that in-depth analysis, and then sometimes we do disagree. And a lot of the times when we do disagree, we go against the grain, we end up being correct. So really hoping that that's the case for that Kai Kara-France fight. But it is good to see when the people at Tapology are so heavily on your side. So now we've got the main event of this UFC Fight Night Columbus card, and that is Curtis Blaydes versus Chris Daukaus. I'm rolling with Chris Daukaus here, the former Philadelphia cop, against Curtis Blaydes, a incredible wrestler, but a guy that's taken a lot of damage over the history of his career. A guy that's been in some really tough battles with guys, some of the best heavyweights to ever do it. Derek Lewis, for example, knocked him out, knocked him flat. He just had a little bit of a war with Biggie Boy, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Dutch guy, can't remember his name off the top of my head. This is terrible. You know who I'm talking about, Tom, the Dutch fella.
Dutch fella?
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, Alistair Overeem.
We're talking about Curtis Blaydes?
Yeah, he had a war with Alistair Overeem where he ultimately
won. A while ago.
Yeah, a while ago. Mark Hunt. He's gotten into it with Shamil Abdurakhimov, another guy that these two guys both fought. Both have wins against Junior Dos Santos. He actually
Aleksei, obviously.
Yeah, Aleksei, everybody. But, I just think over his career, Curtis Blaydes has taken a lot more damage. He does have a lot of impressive wins over a lot of great guys, and he has been in that title contender, conversation for quite some time. But Chris Daukaus is a little bit newer to it. He's got incredibly fast hands, and I do think that he has the power on his feet to potentially knock out Curtis Blaydes. But one of the things that's getting kind of swept under the rug here is a lot of people talk about Curtis Blaydes' wrestling ability, excuse me, but they're kind of glancing over the fact that Chris Daukaus is nobody to scoff at on the ground. Chris Daukaus is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and so is his brother. The two of them are really great grapplers. It's just that Chris Daukaus doesn't really need to use it because of how good his hands are. I do see there potentially being a situation where Curtis Blaydes does take Chris Daukaus down and can't really do much with it because of how great Chris Daukaus is off of his back, and especially in the full guard position. So I actually do like Chris Daukaus to win this one. I don't see it going 5 rounds. Chris Daukaus is very intelligent, where, it could end up being a similar situation to that Derek Lewis fight where Curtis Blaydes just absolutely telegraphs the takedown, and Chris Daukaus catches him right on the chin and puts him to sleep. But I do see this one ultimately winning by Chris Daukaus knockout. But this is one of those fights that could go either way. So I wouldn't say that I'm like super dead set on this Chris Daukaus pick, but as of right now, I'm rolling with Chris Daukaus here. He's the hot new guy, new guy in the scene in that, top upper echelon of the heavyweight division. Actually just recently left his job as a cop to focus on UFC and MMA. So I look forward to seeing this version of Chris Daukaus that can be fully committed to his craft and honing everything he needs to be successful here. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, it's interesting because Curtis Blaydes is going to come in here. He's going to be much heavier, and he's going to be roughly 260 pounds, and he's going to be an athletic 260, where we know Chris Daukaus is going to come in at like 230, 240 with obviously a lot of fat on him. We've seen that work for Tyson Fury, so, no knocks there. But when you go back and you look at the level of competition, I mean, you highlighted Curtis Blaydes, and you highlighted that he's been in some wars, so obviously there's a degree of intelligence that has to come with that. I think Curtis Blaydes, I mean, you look back at the guys he fought, and, there's definitely things that you pick up and nuggets that you take along the way. And, his last knockout was to Derek Lewis. I mean, I don't know if that's something I want to particularly read into. It's not like Chris Daukaus has Derek Lewis style power. And I think, just like Ben Askren, now granted he's never going to, fight again, but Ben Askren's never getting caught by that knee again. You know what I mean? So I think when, you're Chris Daukaus, and you don't hope to catch Curtis Blaydes potentially coming in just like Derek Lewis did. Also, you just took a loss from Derek Lewis in the first round. So, if you're going to talk about chins, obviously your chin is cracked to some certain extent. I like Curtis Blaydes in this. I think Curtis Blaydes is going to be able to take him down, and if he takes him down, I mean, he's called Curtis Razor Blades for a reason. I think he's really good ground and pound, and if he can hurt Chris Daukaus, I mean, listen here. I'm the guy who preaches about how siblings can't be good at the same time in the same promotion, and we've seen his brother go off. He's had wins recently. I don't think. When Kyle Daukaus is good, I'm nervous for Chris Daukaus. That's why I'm going with Curtis Razor Blaydes.
I remember you saying that. I mean, that is your thing, but I remember you saying that about Kyle Daukaus back when he fought Kevin Holland, that because Chris Daukaus was good at the time, that Kyle Daukaus couldn't be good. I think that these.
What happened? Derek Lewis beat Chris Daukaus, and then Kyle Daukaus started winning.
Yeah, I think that these two brothers are going to be the ones that ultimately down the road, maybe a year from now, maybe a couple of years, are going to be the ones that defy your theory. But I'm glad to see that we split on this main event. I think that one really, sneaky bet to keep an eye on, because of how good at jiu-jitsu Daukaus is going to be Daukaus potentially by submission out of that full guard. I don't know what it's going to look like, and I also haven't really checked how many submission victories in the UFC Chris Daukaus has, if any. But he is really accomplished on the ground, and grappling outside of the UFC. So I think that that's something to keep an eye out for. Let's see what these opening lines are for these two guys.
It would fit in perfectly because you have Kyle losing in May of 2021 to Phil Hawes, and Daukaus winning Chris winning in September to Shamil Abdurakhimov. Then you have Kyle with the no contest Kevin Holland fight that he was doing pretty well in October. And then December, that was like the transition. And then this December, you have Chris Daukaus losing to Derek Lewis, right? And then now for Kyle, in February of 2022, now you beat Jamie Pinkett with Darce. By the way, his name is the Darce Knight. So, yeah. And if you're Chris and you lose this fight, I mean, that's just the full transition, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I'm still rolling with Chris Daukaus here. I like Chris Daukaus to get it done in this one. I think he's going to shock a lot of people, and I think he's going to show why he deserves to be in that conversation for the top heavyweights right now, because we are seeing a little bit of a different picture emerge where you have guys like Tai Tuivasa, Tom Aspinall, the makeup of the top 10 in even the top 5 in this heavyweight division is really going to change. It already is changing. So I look forward to Chris Daukaus cementing his place there and showing why he deserves to be in the upper echelon of heavyweights going forward. I could be completely wrong. We both made really good arguments here. But, this is one of those ones that could go either way. I do like Chris Daukaus' line. That's part of the reason why I'm taking him. He is a plus 260 underdog in this one. So some money to be made. I do like the pick there. But with all that being said, we're going to go as we usually do. If you've been watching us on YouTube for a while, you know that we always run down our picks at the end of every show. So I'm going to kick mine off. I'm taking Neil Magny as my prelim pick. And then I have Viacheslav Borshchev. I'm also taking him by knockout. Love that pick. Absolutely love it. I'm taking Illir Latifi, potentially by a decision. Going with Kai Kara-France by knockout. Great underdog money there. Going with Matt Brown, potentially by knockout. I'm going with Aleksei Grasso by decision. And I'm also taking Chris Daukaus straight up at plus 260. But I'm also going to sprinkle a little bit on that sneaky submission pick. I think that that's one to really keep an eye out for. What do you got for us, Tom?
Yeah, man, I am going with Manon Fiorot over Jennifer Maia. I'm going for that one by a finish. I like Neil Magny over Max Griffin by decision. I like Illir Latifi over Aleksei Oleinik. Who was your guy? Santa Claus?
Oh, Slava Claus, Viacheslav Borshchev.
Following you on Slava Claus. Slava Claus. That was it. Obviously, Kai Kara-France. Next question. Contrarian pick with Bryan Barberena. I'm going Aleksei Grasso over Joanne Calderwood. And, I'm taking my guy Curtis Blaydes over Chris Daukaus because I think Kyle Daukaus has been doing a little bit too well lately.
All right. I like that logic, though, the brothers. You've been riding with that theory for quite some time. So
here's the unfortunate thing. I forgot to change the screens back to me. So everyone at home got to watch you while I rattled off that epic rant, unfortunately. So unfortunately for them, but,
Oh, unfortunately for them. I'm over here looking good. What are you talking about?
Little zinger.
Come on, man. I'm over here looking handsome, smiling, laughing at your logic, But we did coincide on a lot of those picks. So, it'll work out either way because your picks, my picks, it'll just be me here smiling, laughing. But, guys, thank you, everybody at home that tuned in for our first live episode. We really, really sincerely appreciate it. Please, while you're here, if you're on YouTube, comment, like, and especially please subscribe. It really helps this channel out. And if you're watching us over on Twitter, retweet this episode, like it, tweet down below, respond. Let us know what you think of our picks in real time. And give us a follow over here at _Pickin Winners. That's the big page with all of our guys contributing for all different sports. We've got Tyler Tiho doing his lacrosse picks, absolutely killing it on NCAA lacrosse right now. We've got guys like Connor, the locksmith, doing his NBA. We've got a new addition to the team, Riley, doing his daily basketball picks. So, yeah, definitely please check our stuff out. Really appreciate y'all at home. And have a great night, you and Tom. Thank you for joining me, as always.
Of course.